Do you believe in the Easter Bunny?
No.
Do you think people, like my daughters, believe in the Easter Bunny? And we're coming close to Christmas. Do you believe in Santa Claus?
No, I mean, I would love for him to come down my chimney and stuff my stocking.
What the wrong with you?
Alas, no jolly Saint Nick is putting a smile on my face.
Jesus Christ.
My.
So no.
So much is wrong with you.
No to the Easter Bunny, no to Santa Claus.
Do you think, because like my daughters, and it's understandable because they're children, my daughters, they believe in Santa Claus, they believe in the Easter Bunny.
Well, they should. They're like 6.
6 and 4. Yeah, 6 and 4, 6 and 2. But like, I think the 6-year-old is kind of starting to realize.
She's critical thinking.
Well, yeah, because that's how we've taught her.
Oh.
Which is a good thing. A 10 or 12-year-old believing in Santa Claus still? Think that they're kind of losing their mind a little bit? Do you think somebody who believes in the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or, I don't know, maybe Bigfoot is sane? Oh, hi there, Jimbo.
Bigfoot's real.
It's weird to talk to you
I
in
saw a
person.
Bigfoot. Yep, it made me upper deck my pantsuit.
Oh, boy.
Hi, my name is Rick.
Hi, my name is Tim.
And this is
Break it down.
with
Rick and Tim.
What the hell's going on?
It's a good question.
I'm glad I'm Italian. I'm not white.
You kind of are. Why does it have to be the big chicken?
Why does it have to be the big chicken?
Why do you have to say it like that? I was right, and you were racist.
It's Brittany, bitch.
I still have a belief that Sasquatch is out there, but that doesn't make me crazy. And you give me that face, and this is my issue with you. You're a questionable person.
This is a podcast where Rick, a Generation Xer, and Tim, a millennial, come together and try to find answers to our changing world.
Break it down with Rick and Tim. All right.
People having belief systems like that, I think, who are adults, are suffering from some kind of mental disorder. For real. I am guilty of that. For 10 years, I dedicated my life to researching and investigating the subject of Sasquatch. And I come away a better person now that I have found the truth and can see why people like me fall victim to something like that. Because we're looking for meaning, we're searching for meaning, and we find a community that embraces us, that doesn't vet us, that welcomes us unconditionally. And it's truly as absurd as a grown man collecting My Little Pony and thinking there's an Easter bunny shooting Easter eggs out of its ass. Flat earthers, same thing. It's the suspension of critical thinking skills. And I think a lot of people are suffering mentally because of it.
You know flat earthers, I guarantee it. But you don't know who they are because they're afraid of talking about it.
1, 2, 3, we're not crazy!
Today's subject is mental health.
Mental health.
Yes. We live in the Portland area.
We do.
And we see people who are truly suffering from mental health issues every single day.
Right. And before we begin, I think it's important that we break down what is a mental health issue. Let's define that. What is a mental health issue?
You know, taking care of our bodies physically, mentally are very important. You got to keep the vehicle going. It's like a car.
Right. But what is the actual, if somebody said, tell me what on paper is a mental health issue?
If you are not able to conduct your life in a healthy manner for you and the people around you, where it becomes destructive and negative and toxic and painful in regards to verbal abuse, physical abuse, your own personal abuse, neglect, things like that, then that is a mental health issue. Mental health is a big umbrella. You could put a lot of things under that. Chronic depression. I suffer from that, especially around the holidays since I don't have any more family. I have you and my dogs and this big microphone.
That's right. You have a voice.
Seriously.
My.
So it can be really hard. And my mental health, I don't think, is in jeopardy anymore. When I was dealing with my parents' loss and then having to evict my best friend who was a drug addict and was stealing from me, worst experience of my life. And my depression was, I was non-functional.
Depression is not a matter of having a bad day. It's not a turn your frown upside down or choose joy kind of thing. Depression makes you tired, not take a nap tired, sleep for a century tired. Depression can make even the most mundane task feel monumental to achieve. Some people get so depressed that the idea of getting out of bed and brushing their teeth feels like an Olympic task. They're not exaggerating. Depression is not a weakness. Depression is not a choice. Depression is an illness. And for a lot of us, mental illness, including depression, literally exists in our genes. Like a really f***ed up blueprint.
Well, according to the Google, the definition of mental health encompasses emotional,
So that would be like how you feel,
psychological,
the way you perceive things and like the world around you. Yeah.
and social well-being.
Way you perceive other people perceiving you and the way you think your relationships are.
This next one is something that you're responsible for.
Okay.
Influencing cognition.
Okay. So what does that mean?
Influencing thought,
Okay.
thinking, critical thinking.
Or where you get your information from.
That's a part of that.
Like who you let influence you.
Perception,
Okay. So,
how you look at the world.
okay. So your personal views on things. So your perspective, your point of view.
Your reality.
Yeah. Your reality.
And behavior.
How you act on your understanding of the world around you.
It likewise determines how an individual handles stress,
Okay, so how you react to when the world is crashing down around you, fight or flight or freeze, or I think there's one more, submit.
interpersonal relationships.
Okay, so how you develop long-term relationships. Easy. Can you have lifelong friends? Can you stay in a marriage?
Maintain them.
Yes, can you maintain these lifelong
Yeah.
friendships?
And decision making.
Critical thinking. That one's self-explanatory. Can you make the right decision?
Yeah, that's all under mental health.
That is a lot. So categorizing a mental health disorder would be anything that alters your ability to do one of those things out of those pretty much 9 things.
It's 6. And then it likewise determines how an individual handles stress, relationships, and decision making. So 9 things. 6 main things that affect 3 things.
That is extremely complicated. That might cause a mental health disorder, one might say. I guess that kind of opens it up to really a broad berth of mental health possibilities of things to go wrong.
Why is there such a stigma attached to the topic of mental health in our country and other countries in the world?
I think because it's odd to us to put ourselves in that perspective from that person, because it challenged what was our understanding of normal.
When something's out of sight, it's out of mind. And I think historically, people that were suffering from serious psychological issues, like schizophrenia, for example, they were put in hospitals like Bellevue, straitjackets, locked away in sanitariums, things like that. And society continues forward, leaving them behind. The royal family had 2 royal members that were suffering from mental illness that were being cared for, and they were kept out of the limelight and family affairs and things like that because of public perception. I learned that on The Crown.
Catherine and Nerissa Bowes-Lyon were first cousins to Queen Elizabeth II and her sister Princess Margaret. They were quietly placed in the Royal Earlswood Hospital for people with developmental disabilities. The Crown Netflix series puts forward the argument that it was to save the royal family from questions about hereditary mental illness.
It's sad, but that's where I learned it, and
Right.
it's true.
Well, you're right. When I was in society today, when I was in Korea, you didn't see a lot of people who suffered from mental health issues in society. And come to find out, the normal thing to do is to send your kid to a facility out in the country and forget about them.
It's a shame.
It is a shame.
Why were you in Korea real quick so people can know?
I was teaching English. I was broadening my perspectives.
Every day we see mental health on the streets, especially since we live in the Portland area.
Right.
I have another question for you.
Okay, what's your next question?
The homeless topic incorporates a lot of mental health topics as well.
Yeah.
And from what I have been finding out this past year, and because of my exposure to what's happening here in my community, chronic drug use creates mental health problems.
Yeah.
And I will see entertainers,
It's Britney, bitch.
and you can tell something's happened in the 20 years that she's been in front of our eyes in media. She's not the same person she was.
Leave Britney alone!
Every human being's brain chemistry is different. Similar, but different. So you could do crystal meth once and just be destroyed. Or you could do it your whole life, and yeah, visibly we can tell you've definitely been on stuff, but
Like mentally, you're still there.
right.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of different ways that you can fry your brain. And I think drug use is one. We have a lot of homeless veterans. Exposing yourself to extreme trauma like you would in a war is another way you can fry your brain. It's crazy.
Yeah, PTSD.
PTSD is no joke. We need to do something about that.
TBI, traumatic brain injury.
Traumatic brain injury. All sorts of these. Going back to our list, there's so many things that we can lump into the category of a mental health problem, and all of these things, in one way or another, have a catalyst, right?
A trigger.
A trigger, or I guess you would call it a trigger. Yeah, an activation. Trigger is very pointed.
How is your mental health?
Right now, in the moment, I feel like I'm hanging in there. I think I'm good.
It fluctuates?
Yeah, I mean, I take care of myself for the most part. I just joined a gym. It's very expensive, $186 a month for my family.
Okay, you joined a gym.
Okay, so I joined a gym. I take care of myself. I try to eat healthy, although it's been rough doing that around the holidays.
And some may argue that diet is a contributor to your mental health.
Absolutely. I think it is. That was my battle with food. I loved it. I still do. I love food.
If your mental health was in jeopardy for any reason, are you comfortable enough with you as a person to be able to reach out for help?
I don't know. I haven't really reached out for help in terms of like the struggles that I've gone through. Because, I mean, everybody goes through difficult things, getting new jobs and change and everything. And it's all about, for me, finding a rhythm. And I've always found a rhythm. And I've never really gotten to a point where I haven't kind of worked out a problem on my own and felt that I've needed like someone to help me work through it. But that's not to say that I haven't, talked through some of my decisions with people and taken input and, reached out to friends with small tidbits and whatnot, in terms of my mental health.
You have healthy relationships with your family and your friends.
Yeah, I'd say I'd have healthy relationships with my family and friends.
And generally people that care about you will notice a change in your behavior and maybe might point something out to you that you don't even realize. For example, in my case, when I'm upset about something, I shut up And sometimes I'm not aware of it. And people tell me, what's wrong? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're so quiet. Nothing's wrong. But yet there is.
Sure.
Because my outwardly positive, bouncing off the walls personality is suddenly just total introvert.
Right? Your aura has subsided in some terms.
Yeah. The turtle head has gone back in the shell.
There you go. That's a fun visual.
And I am becoming more aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder now that I'm all alone since I don't have my family anymore.
Well, you do have, people and folks who care about you. So.
Of course. And I'm sure you would notice something was.
Of course, yeah.
Hey Rick, what's going on?
Right? If you weren't sending me like 5 random TikTok videos a day that I never watch because I don't have a TikTok, and it always asks me to go to TikTok. And then I sometimes will try to watch them, and I'll have issues watching them because it's on web browser, and it just doesn't. It's just a mess. It's just
so from now on, I'm going to download the videos.
Oh my god, that's probably a much better idea.
I can do that for you.
Good, because it always takes me out. I'm an old person, Rick. I'm older than you. I feel like sometimes. Anyway, I feel like that because I also push my limits. Like I take on a lot of work, a lot of stress.
Well, you have a stressful job.
I do.
And you're strong right now in your life, mentally, physically, health-wise, to withstand the world of being an educator in today's society.
Right. And especially with at-risk, students.
Me being a student, even this late in life, I will sit in class and wonder, what if a shooter comes in? I'm at a university, and universities have been targets of mass shootings. And I'm not saying my mental health is in jeopardy because of it, but it's just, my mind will go there when I'm sitting in class thinking, okay, what was that sound we just heard outside in the hallway? But imagine being a teacher in your shoes, hearing a loud noise outside in the hallway. So if my perspective as a student is like, oh, what's that? I can't imagine you being responsible for a class of kids.
I can.
Yeah. I mean,
I've been in this school, and I've been in lockdowns before.
I can't imagine.
I can.
Are you able to talk to your parents about anything?
Sure.
What about your wife?
Yes.
Anything?
Sure. Easy.
That's good that you have that.
I can. Sometimes I have to gauge whether or not it's worth her reaction. As everybody does in their relationships.
The life of a married man.
It's the life of any married person.
Happy wife, happy life.
Right. There are some problems that we all can solve on our own, and if it's big enough to bring to our partner, we will. I'm sure there are problems that she deals with all the time that she doesn't tell me about.
When you're dealing with people who come from lots of trauma, that trauma shows itself in later life as depression sometimes, as anxiety sometimes, as mental health issues. And because I recognize that the impact of poverty and the impact of trauma in poverty really causes people to carry that into their lives unless it is processed.
In my case, I have depression. And your perception is that I also have anxiety.
I think so.
Is it constant or does it come and go?
I think there are certain things that can set you off. What the world right now in our current state of time currently calls a trigger, which I believe at some point they're going to change because trigger entails you're shooting someone because there's triggers on guns.
Set off?
Or activated.
Blow up?
You're activated is one that
activated.
I've heard that one. So I have a feeling that we're going to go to activated next.
Richter's activated.
Right. Well, it activates your, trauma response, I guess you would call it. And so let's talk about that. We recently had somebody who was strolling through our neighborhood, a homeless person, I assume, and she was clearly not well, probably experiencing a mental health issue, and she went onto our neighbor's property and was eyeing their wind chime. And I walked around the corner to kind of approach her. And my approach would have been like, excuse me, Let's move away from that. I would have approached it very diplomatically. However, behind me, behind the red curtain, was a bull charging.
I cannot confirm nor deny if that bull was me.
It was very, very quick to escalate. Yeah, you were very quick to escalate at that moment, and you certainly scared her.
That was the intention.
And you did, right?
And I explained to you why.
Exactly, right? So you justified that.
The Rick from a year ago would not have responded that way, because a year ago... Do you have to cough?
Maybe. I have a tickle in my throat. I'm thinking about drinking that water, but it's also been there for a week.
No, it's your water. I haven't touched it.
It's been there for a week.
Water doesn't go bad.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. Oh, drink your water. Young man.
Does water go bad?
No. Water is a natural substance and does not go bad.
Oh, no. It went flat.
No. It can grow.
I explained to you when that happened why I reacted that way, because Rick a year ago would not have responded in such an aggressive manner. In the past year, I've had a homeless person attempt to enter my backyard through my gate while I was in my backyard with my dogs, and my dogs are all that I have.
Jesus.
That'd be like you with your kids.
So let's...
Okay.
Exactly.
And
right.
then the guy that came to my front door without a shirt on, and I mistakenly answered without looking through my eye hole, speaking to me in gibberish, clearly on some kind of a drug.
Yeah.
And was homeless.
I remember this.
And he wanted juice.
Juice.
Juice. That's how he said it. I'm like, there's no juice here. Then he went to go knock on my neighbor's door. I'm like, don't knock on her door. Get out of here. And he left. And I was like, oh my gosh. You deal with the homeless situation in different ways. And when it comes to your own home, like you had that one guy that wasn't homeless in your window with an ice pick.
Right.
Oh, imagine if he was homeless. Now you've engaged with some of these people in our community that I have zero tolerance for.
So let's go. I'm going to stop you here because I want to go back and examine what you said there, because you're defending your actions against this lady. So let's and again, I want to say it's the anxiety that's been created by the experiences you have, right? So here's my perspective on the thing. When I approached the lady, yes, I understand that there has been some invasions of our privacy, invasions of our property.
Hijacking our neighborhoods.
Hijackings of our neighborhoods, one might say. That's something we can, address at some point. But let's go back to your experiences. The guy that was at the door. Again, yes, an invasion of your privacy. But then you discovered something about him. What did you discover about him?
That he's a crystal meth addict.
Right.
And he's been living on the streets for quite some time.
Right.
And it's breaking his mother's heart.
Right.
He has a daughter.
Right.
And he is abandoned all responsibility.
Right.
In favor of drugs.
Right. Now, is he going through a mental health crisis?
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know if the drugs were his self-medicating way of dealing with issues, or if he's mental now because of the drug use. I don't know him.
Either way, do you think he is his going back to those 9 points, those 6 things that relate to the things, the whole map? Any of those nodes are, if they are affected, would he be considered going through a mental health crisis?
Let's look him up right now. Pull it up.
Well, I don't even think we have to look him up, just on the surface level.
Emotional, I could not tell with him. Psychological.
Was he perceiving do you think that his emotions were in control?
I don't know.
Okay.
But psychological, clearly, speaking in gibberish.
Okay.
Asking for juice. A complete stranger.
Right.
His social well-being.
Well, here's the other thing. He might have come across, it was during the summer, was it not?
Yes.
I thought about that. I figured your neighbor sometimes leaves out juice. Gatorade.
She does.
He might have come across that little treasure chest.
Mm-hmm.
And might have got some of that juice.
You're not supposed to feed the animals.
That's awful. You can't put that in there. We're not calling the homeless people animals.
Well, Smokey the Bear.
I hate you. Going back to the whole idea of it, do you think that he was going through a mental health crisis? At the beginning of this, you said that drugs are a catalyst to a mental health crisis.
They
right?
do. They can lead to it.
They
Yes.
can lead to it. They can lead to it. A dependency on a drug is going to affect some of these things.
Especially the last three: decision making,
Yes.
interpersonal relationships,
Yes.
and how they handle stress.
Yes. So, do they deserve a bit of empathy?
The Rick a year ago would say, yes, and we should hug the trees and bang our tambourines. The Rick now says, no, because drugs are a choice. They have affected my life personally because of my old best friend that I had to evict because he was lying and stealing from me.
Right.
Living in my home environment.
So what was his drug?
Crystal meth.
Okay. And when did he start?
Years ago.
And how did it begin?
And he lied to me and said that he's been sober for 7 years.
So how did it begin? Did you know?
Don't know.
Okay. So here's the other thing. Like, we have a huge problem, and part of it is, our fentanyl problem, our drug problem. I mean, I know a lot of people who, broke a limb or had a tooth taken out.
And it becomes like a slippery slope.
It's the one
the domino
thing.
effect.
Yep. And so, yes, drugs are a choice, but also it's an easy trap to get sucked into. And for those people who are predisposed, I think, to an addictive personality, like, they can, in the wrong hands, be pushed into an addiction by our pharmaceutical companies. And I have no qualm saying that because it's been proven in court.
I do have empathy for homeless,
right,
that are not on drugs, that are trying to get back on their feet, that are trying to better their environment. I have yet to see that in our community, Tim.
Right, because who wants to run that? Who wants to fund that? Who has the money to do that?
That man that we met when we were out for our walk, the Gresham homeless specialist, environment specialist, and he told us he's tried to help these people and give them places to live, and they said no. The one individual, you know who I'm talking about.
Right, because those places to live comes with stipulations. You got to get clean. And for them, in that moment, their decision-making isn't clear because they just want drugs, man. I don't want to live anywhere. I just want drugs. It's not very fair.
Tim, it would be different if that woman said, help me.
But her decision-making is being impaired there. Right. And so it goes back to they're not really themselves. And that's not necessarily an excuse for their behavior and an excuse for them to be in the community. But do you think that it warrants such an aggressive response from you? Or does it warrant us to give her an assertive correction instead of an aggressive, I'm going to... extremely masculine. Let's
be transparent here.
Yeah,
that woman who was clearly on drugs,
yes,
was on the property of an elderly woman that we like and that we know, who's part of our community, and she shares the house with her son.
Right.
I will defend people that I know and care about.
Right.
In my social circle in our community. If it was someone else's house that I don't know who lives there, I'd be like, hey, get away from there. It would be a totally different Tim-approved Rictor tone.
Tim-approved Rictor tone.
But if it was, let's say, your house, we might be having a different discussion right now. It's just...
So... how do you control yourself when you feel out of control? Because remember, I was there. Like, I was approaching that lady. Clearly, I had a plan of action. But when you realized what was happening, it didn't matter where I was, who I was, or what I was. You had one goal to get her out of there, right? And I was caught in the middle of it, and I turned around, and I was like, I was just as surprised as her. I was caught in the crossfire, right?
Sorry.
right? And
I don't regret it.
Well, and let me go back, because this is kind of what I deal with, because I have those kind of reactions that I deal with from the people I work with, and it happens in like my place of learning, and those people that I deal with, those clients that I deal with, they have the same outlook. Of course, I'm going to attack her. Of course, I'm going to stand up to her. They don't say attack her. Of course, I'm gonna let her know that they can't talk about me like that. Of course, I'm going to, and I don't regret, even if it's going to get me kicked out of this place that I'm at. I don't regret doing it, because I have to stand up for myself. They're so stuck in the idea that they have to, when they see something wrong, they have to assert themselves, not assertively, but aggressively, to the point that thing is tamped down. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? It's that the person with the bigger stick is going to win. And that, I think, is what is the problem in our community, is we don't know how to negotiate with each other.
How can you negotiate with someone that's on drugs? Like that woman.
Right.
What was she telling you? To go and vote.
Right.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Do you remember what my response to her was?
It wasn't my response. I was quiet. But at that point, I was like, okay, you got this, Tim.
Right. And then do you remember what my response was?
No.
It was just to kind of play her game a little bit. I told her, hey, voting was the day before. And she said, well, you got to get out and vote. And I said, I already voted. You don't got to worry about us. You get out and vote. I kind of threw it back at her. I played her game, and she moved on. And I was like, yeah, you got to go. You got to keep moving. She kept going, right? There was, for me, escalating. And I've learned this in the field of education, and I will stand by this. The moment you escalate and lose control, you lose control. Nobody can control themselves when they're that escalated, because you have one goal: to make sure that person stops whatever they are doing, and it blinds yourself to the entire community around you. You don't see who you're affecting. You don't see, if your response scared the old lady that might have been standing behind the door, peering through her people at this crazy lady. It was, the son who was there, and he was like, whoa, I heard that when I came out, and it shocked him too, right? So it really affected everybody in that community at once. We saw Rictor go from 0 to 60 like that.
I did not physically harm her.
No.
I wasn't even close to physically harming her.
No, but you definitely emotionally scared her.
I got the message across. I'm not going to yell what I said, but I'm going to say what I said. Hey, get the out of there.
Right.
That's not your property.
Right. Now, what if my children were playing?
Oh, I would have probably been throwing punches on her right. Because your kids are there.
Right. Okay. But then what would that have done to my kids? See, again, it's that.
But if she approached your kids,
white rage.
If she had approached your kids,
right,
in some way inappropriately, then yeah, I would have. You would have to pull. Well, I'm sure you'd be swinging on her.
I would be there.
You both of but
in our community, I want to go back to, in situations, we get to make a choice. Do we want to fight trauma with trauma, or do we want to process what is happening and find the best, most untraumatic outcome? I think that is part of our mental health problem, because all of us are predisposed to be overly aggressive. It took me a while to unlearn exactly what you are talking about. This, I am going to puff my chest up and be angry and be the biggest, baddest person here so that you get scared and go away. That is a problem, because we can deal with things in a much more controlled way.
If I was doing random outbursts in public for no reason at all, I would totally agree with you 100%.
Right.
But this is my home. This is my community. That was a lady I know and enjoy her company. That sounds naughty. We hang out and play with our dogs. We're not, so we do neighborly things. To me, I thought that was in jeopardy.
What if she had a gun?
I don't know.
I was looking at the statistics of the crime in Portland. 25% of the crime was like shooting and stabbing and all that stuff, related stuff, was homeless and stuff like that, like homeless related. So she very well could have had a weapon on her, right? And you get big and you get angry, and I'm standing between you and her, and maybe bullets start going flying. Maybe she has a knife on her and she pulls it out to defend herself and starts swinging it around. There's so many things that can go wrong when you escalate. We don't realize until it does happen. That's something I've learned at my job too.
I know there's a line I will not cross, and that's being physical.
Would there be a line if I said it and said, like, bro, you can't like explode like that around my kids?
Well, I never would. I haven't.
No.
When your kids and I and you have been around homeless people, especially when that one guy was screaming at us,
sure,
I can smell the air.
Right. And yeah, but
I didn't explode at him.
No, you didn't.
Because he wasn't doing anything to you or me or your daughters.
No.
He wasn't invading property. He wasn't, that woman we saw was taking people's property and going from house to house to house.
Right. We could have dealt with that in a much calmer way, I think.
I have zero tolerance for that now.
I guess what I'm saying is I think that stuff has happened to you that maybe has impeded one of these things and this is something that, and this is why mental health is one of those things that we look at.
What was that?
Oh! Tim cracked his neck.
And we should look at on a much wider scale, because you've had some trauma that now has gotten in the way of you having empathy for the people in our community when they violate our stuff. And it causes a reaction that to some in the community might find a little scary. And you firmly believe that it's still okay to do, which is okay.
Because there's a line I will not cross.
But we don't know what that line is. And we don't know how far you're willing to push that line in that moment, right? Because what happens if they pull out a weapon? What are you going to do next?
Oh, well, I guess when that happens, we'll cross that bridge when it comes.
Exactly. We will push that line to wherever we need to push it, right?
You know what? You know what? I'd say, I wish a motherfucker would. Took off my earrings.
Yeah.
Bring a bitch.
And what does that cause? What do we call that?
I wish a motherfucker would.
Right?
I'm ready.
I want to cause somebody harm. I want somebody to do something for the purpose of me being able to get my aggression out on them. I wish they would. I wish they wouldn't be nice to me and, see my perspective and understand my feelings and have the empathy. I wish they would poke me so that I could just open up on them. I wish they would. I hate when I hear that, because it opens the door for a fight. And it's like, why would I want that in my community? Why would I want somebody saying, I'm ready for this aggression? Why? How is that healthy? It's scary to me, because that's how these fights happen. And we live in a community where we love our weapons, we love our guns. And this is how things start. We, as a community, and I think COVID did this to us a lot, have forgotten how to talk to each other and how to negotiate and how to deal with people who are going through mental health crises. So our option there, right, is to explode on this person, right? And that's kind of like what our society has done in the past, right? Let's just pick them up off the streets, get them for drug charges, put them in recovery or jail, the punitive. And that perpetuates the cycle of trauma. Nothing ever gets done. Nobody ever learns. Or we take another approach, right? I have a buddy who's deep into this now, where we have this, peer outreach, right? We see somebody going through a mental health crisis. They're addicted to drugs. It's causing mental health crises, like you said at the beginning. And they are there to offer them support, someone to talk to, someone to help guide them through the system on getting back to recovery and into society. One of them cleans up the problem. The other one continues the cycle of trauma. You have to decide, I guess, which one you want to be a part of.
Rational human behavior, I'm all for. Dealing with someone that's on drugs, violating our space, our homes, our safety, et cetera, I have zero tolerance for. And unfortunately, our police here, as you know, in the city, Gresham, we have 7 cops.
Right.
As of the summer. We don't know if they've hired any more. But there is no manpower. And that one police officer that was talking to us regarding another homeless situation told us, you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that he's giving us the okay to verbally assault homeless people that are invading property, but
you're saying that he gave you the verbal okay
we have to look out,
assault people, right?
What I'm saying,
you got to do what you got to do.
I wish a mother would. I'm kidding.
Right? You got to do what you got to do.
We have to
Rick.
look out for each other.
You got to do what you got to do.
We have to look out for each other, and
however way you want to frame it.
You know, I'm sorry that I scared you. Did you piddle?
No.
Do you think she piddled?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think so.
Probably. So let me ask you this question. Do you think that white rage is a mental health problem?
Well, let's see here. According to all these things, white rage, emotional, psychological, and social well-being, yes. Influencing behavior, yeah. Yes. That's white rage is bad decision-making. It affects interpersonal relationships, and having that kind of white rage isn't handling stress very well.
Why does it have to be white rage? Can it just be rage in general?
I think the term white rage has become popular because of MAGA and that environment Donald Trump has nurtured.
So one might say to those people, the outside world has impeded their way of life, right? It's challenging their home, their view of what America is. And the reason why they're all going crazy is because they're seeing the same thing you're seeing out here. Is people coming in and going, oh, this looks nice. I like this. We're going to change some things around here. And they're going, heck no, I'm going to get angry and rage at you until you see things my way.
On the surface, I can see that analogy.
Yeah.
But you're not encompassing the environment, which was my personal environment, and the relationships I have with people in our community. This wasn't some random stranger's house. So that's different than, doing like a complete wash, that white rage, and Rictor losing it on some druggie that was...
I think you just said it right there. You lost it on some druggie. You lost it, Rick.
Oh, I did.
You lost it.
Oh, yeah.
You lost control. Were you in control? That's what lost it means.
I think, because I was completely in control of my body.
I remember trying to talk you down.
And it did.
I did. I tried to calm you very quickly because it was like very shocking. You were ready to bust shit up, and that would have been very traumatic for everybody there. And so, do you think you were in control? You said you lost it.
Verbally, I lost it.
I think you lost it more than verbally because I was there. I saw it. Ooh.
I wish we had video of it.
I do too. Oh my God. Maybe we might. Did you have your side camera up at the time?
No.
Oh my God.
No, it doesn't capture that.
That would have been epic.
But it was probably the most heterosexual moment of my life.
It was. I was like, let's find him a woman.
That was butch.
It was. Here's the thing.
There was no lisp. The earrings didn't come off. I didn't take off my purse. The high heel shoes didn't come off. I mean, it was like, oh.
This is the struggle that I have. I was very much just like you. I would lose it all the time. It was the rage. That was how I was taught to kind of deal with my shit, right? That's what society teaches us to do. Train your men to be monsters. We want them to be aggressive. We want them to be manly. We want them to be aggressive. Not assertive. We want them to be aggressive. And so that is our default when we come to something that's so uncomfortable that we can't comprehend processing it.
there's another thing to add to that.
Okay.
Society also teaches us as men to be protectors.
To be protectors as well.
And what was I doing?
You were protecting.
And you were there.
I was there.
And
I was
home,
also protecting. Who
and
was I
my
protecting?
Dogs were there. I think you were kind of like protecting everybody.
I was protecting everybody in that situation because that is what I do.
Talking me down,
right?
and then you were trying to get that woman to go on her way.
Exactly. Did I accomplish everything that I needed to have happen?
You did.
I did, right. And that's because I have the experience around that.
And I did as well because she stopped.
She did.
And she quickly got away from their front door.
She did. We still had to deal with her after that, and there, there were so many possibilities the ways that could have gone. But at the end of the day, let's go back to like what society has taught us how to do. Right? It's when we are in an uncomfortable situation, something that you don't agree with. It's whoever's the biggest, the baddest, whoever can beat the other one down, whoever can get the most aggressive, the most, blah. That's our perception of what assertion is, but that's not the case of what assertion is, right? I'm not saying that you can't still be firm and tell people how it is, but the moment you become aggressive, it takes the focus off of their misbehavior and puts it onto the behavior that they've created, and that is a monster. So it goes back to how a lot of us are raised, to be honest with you, back in the day, right? I'm not saying that I was. I love my father. Hi, Pops. But if you do something wrong, you're going to get hurt, right? You're going to
get hit.
Get hit. I'm going to get a whooping, some people say. All sorts of things, right? So if you... and the problem with that style of parenting is, well, it's effective, but it doesn't necessarily address the issue. So, for example, let's say there were cookies, and you grabbed a cookie, and your mom smacked you on the wrist and got angry.
My mom would have just slapped me across the face. What are you talking about?
Okay, fine. She came over and she grabbed you and she slapped you across the face. Yeah. So now you don't necessarily fear the cookie taking part. You fear the monster that is your mother, right? So instead of understanding the reason why you're not supposed to eat the cookie, because you're going to spoil your dinner, right? You don't see the negative outcome of eating the cookie. You just see a monster that it creates. And that's the problem, because it doesn't improve your behavior necessarily in a way that gets you to understand why you don't eat a cookie. So when you get out into the real world and you see cookies, you're going to go, oh, hell yeah, no monster here. Now I'm all on my own. And then you just keep eating cookies because they're so good. And then you just become the cookie monster.
Cookies.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, it's conditioning. So I'm saying that we need to examine mental health because it's so complex, just like our own physical bodies, right? That even when we have a behavior that to some people from an outside perspective is shocking, maybe you need to evaluate that, right? I remember exploding on people, and now looking back on it going, God, I was just so out of control. Even when I thought I was in the most control, because that's when I felt like I was at most control, because I was taught that that's where you have most control, when you're angry and when you're fighting. That is when you have control. And I have learned that that is a lie. The moment you become out of control, you lose control.
Anger is one letter short of danger.
Yeah. It's so much easier to control people if you are calm, because you have so much more. What?
You're trained in that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here very calm in a very tense conversation with you.
But you're trained in handling people like this.
That is not true.
As a teacher, you're not trained?
No. I was never trained in any sort of de-escalation or any sort of conversating with anybody who's out of control. This is all stuff that I had to learn on the fly because I was kind of just thrown into all these positions. Yeah.
I thought being an instructor at an at-risk environment, they would have staff development days, right? This is how you handle this stressor. And
we do,
like that.
And we're
so there is something.
There's stuff, but it's not there yet. They're getting there.
But you have more than me.
Yeah, I have some lived experience.
Right, and I'm getting it by living here.
Yes,
in this community.
But also understand that it's not just that, it's the conditioning that you've been taught, or that we've been taught in our ambient society, right? All of the things from the media to the family that we grew up in, the Italian, right? The way to solve the problems that you don't understand or know how to solve is to get to level 10 Rictor aggression.
I wish we still had Uncle Vinny in the family because he would have taken care of the problem.
You know, it's funny.
And I'm not joking.
No, it's crazy. All of us Italians have some weird-ass, crazy Italian story.
One of the recent mental health activists that have come into our pop culture is Prince Harry. And with what his wife, Meghan Markle, went through, living there in England and attempting to adapt to royal life, and her mental health was in jeopardy. And the firm, as they call the family business of the royal family, wouldn't help her.
Right.
And so he took matters into his own hands and left the country, stepped down from royal duties. And now they're constantly being bashed on social media, on Twitter from England, because apparently England is tremendously racist. I never knew that. I've never lived there. I've always heard the good stuff about England because my mom was English. When we see the Black Lives Matter protests and riots that were happening across the world, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But
Really
Prince
is.
Harry being a spokesperson for mental health awareness is fantastic.
Yeah.
Once your time starts slipping away and once you have other commitments in your day or you need to be there and just show up for other people, guess what? The self-care is the first thing that drops away. And I'm happy to admit that as, you know, as a husband, as a dad, as someone who's also starting up a business and with all sorts of commitments. But then think about the single dads, the single mums. Like, you just don't have the time to be able to do that. So yes, I think the point here is that when it comes to mental fitness is the pinnacle, is what you're aiming for, and the road towards that it can be really bumpy.
You go back to that royal life, right? And for her, it was even worse because she was, of color.
And she wanted to kill herself.
Yeah.
Imagine your partner, your spouse, your love, being in such pain and turmoil. Thank God Meghan was able to voice that to Harry.
And and right on him, I'd be like, yeah, let's just get up out of here. If this place is doing that to you,
that environment created a mental health crisis for both of them. And Harry's mother, Princess Diana. And now it's time for Let's Quiz Tim.
Graphic.
Let's see how crazy Tim is.
Okay.
Tim, do animals suffer from mental health problems?
Sure.
Correct. Science suggests that numerous non-human species suffer from psychiatric symptoms.
My cats, all of them have some sort of disorder. One of them has many. She's got like an eating disorder. She's got depression. She's got, I don't know, she eats plastic.
There is one mental malady common in humans that seems to have spared all other animals. What is it?
What do you mean one mental melody?
This one thing the animal kingdom doesn't have except only human beings. So what are, let's say, some of the top 3 mental disorders out there? There's depression, schizophrenia, and what's another good one? I think I kind of just told you what it is right there.
Schizophrenic? They're not schizophrenic?
Animals are not schizophrenic.
Schizophrenic?
Only humans.
Okay, well, you messed that one up.
I did.
You suck!
Though psychotic animals may exist, psychosis such as schizophrenia has never been observed outside of our own species.
Not yet.
True. Do dogs and cats suffer from depression?
Yes.
Correct. Your pet can feel depressed. In fact, depression in animals isn't so different from depression in people. If your pet had behavior or mood changes and is sleeping more than normal, has a change in appetite, and has lost interest in their favorite activities, then your pet may be depressed. Sounds like one of those commercials.
It does.
Can dogs take psychiatric meds?
Sure.
Correct. The answer to this question is overwhelmingly yes. The most commonly used behavior medications in dogs include Prozac, Xanax, and Trazodone.
My brother gives their dog Trazodone.
My dog Lady has a prescription for Trazodone because she has tremendous separation anxiety.
Right. So what's our solution in our community to mental health problems?
Send Rictor after them.
No.
Medicate them.
Yeah. Let's talk about that after this because that's a big problem too.
Can you give your cat Xanax for anxiety?
Sure. No. Why not?
It's commonly prescribed anti-anxiety and sleep medications such as Xanax and Amion that are toxic when ingested by cats.
Oh, there you go. Don't give it to your cat. Don't give it to your cats.
Side effects include toxicity, may include aggression and agitation.
Just makes him more of a cat.
No one wants an angry pussy.
Gross.
At this point in the year of our Lord Donald H. Christ, are MAGA supporters suffering from mental health problems? Honest, remember, I'm not being mean. We're not making fun. Do Trumpers have mental health problems because of this?
Do you think that you have a mental health problem because of the way you react to the lady?
No.
Then no, I don't.
MAGA have a shared psychosis, which is called folie à millions, madness for millions, when occurring at the national level or induced delusions, refers to the infectiousness of severe symptoms that goes beyond ordinary group psychology. When a highly symptomatic individual is placed in an influential position, like Donald H. Christ, the person's symptoms can spread through the population through emotional bonds, heightening existing pathologies, and inducing delusions, paranoia, and propensity for violence, even in previously healthy individuals.
MAGA!
The treatment, Tim, is removal of exposure. And this is coming from the shared psychosis of Donald Trump and his loyalists from a forensic psychiatrist named Bandy Lee. The thing I found interesting in this doctor's opinion, the inducing delusions, the whole thing with like JFK Jr. coming back from the dead.
Sure.
That was nuts. That's beyond. That's beyond anything we've seen in our adult lives.
Sure.
That's like saying Bigfoot is going to come and help Donald Trump.
I used to, yeah.
Right? I mean, we don't, okay, but these people have been groomed to believe in resurrections. Jesus Christ.
Sure. But I mean, but we see this happen a lot, right? Because people are looking for something. So let's talk about this craziness because you think about this, right? They believe in Jesus Christ. Is it the same as crazy as believing that JFK is going to come back? Is it the same crazy as believing in Sasquatch? Rick, tell me about this book. Let's get into this mental health thing right now, real quick. We're going to go through this beginning to end. I want to know, because here's the thing. You're right? Why did I say they don't have a mental health crisis? Because we don't classify people who have a belief system necessarily as having a mental health crisis. Otherwise, you'd have to classify anybody who believed in something that wasn't physically there to have a mental health crisis, right? Anybody who believes in God is suffering a mental health crisis because they can't comprehend the fact that they're going to die and then be done. But at the same time, we don't know that we're going to die and then be done. So it's so crazy to believe that there is an afterlife because who are we to say? All of these are assumptions and opinions. So I want to walk through how you got sucked into the world of Sasquatch from the beginning. Little baby Rictor. Oh boy, no, put those away.
Well, it all happened one dark night.
Ew.
Unfortunately, Rick is a secret government agent hired by the government to sabotage Bigfoot research. Because of that, this episode dealing with mental health will be split into 3 parts. To be continued next week.
Oh, I wish a motherfucker would.